welcome sleuths, suspects, and witnesses to another fun and exciting edition of The Case of the Assassinated Author. This is Act 2 of our mystery. We're having a really, really good time. If you haven't caught up yet, go check in with with our Facebook page, with our website. All of the replays for every night are on those sources. And we hope you'll come in and collect more clues and help us solve the mystery. This is our nightly schedule. I am starting just a couple minutes late today, but we're going to try and keep it as close to this as I possibly can. And I appreciate your indulgence if I do go over time. Tonight, we have two amazing, incredible, astounding, magnificent authors reading for you. It's going to be super, super fun. Mark Love is here to read from his book, Devious, and Jennifer Willcock is also here to read from her book, Into the Forest. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love it when you guys come and read stories to me. It's like the highlight of my entire day. So I'm really, really grateful. Tonight, I would like to begin the readings with Jennifer Willcock. If you wouldn't mind, ma'am, please, when you are ready, first show us your book cover so we can see it. Do you have it with you? Yep, a little bit closer. There it is, Into the Forest. And when you are ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
Okay. Chapter 2. Tio. Prince Teowulf glared at the middle-aged man who stood before him. After flipping through the man's documents, he slammed the approve stamped on them. He shoved the papers forward with 2 fingers, then called, "Next." A middle-aged woman stepped forward, her blue eyes wide, and his scowl deepened as he motioned her closer with an impatient wave of his hand. Her timidity irritated him more than he already was, which was saying something. A low growl emitted from his throat as he snatched the papers out of her hands. "I hate my father." He quietly repeated the refrain to the beat of the stamp hitting the paperwork. He pushed the newly approved papers back to the woman. As she vanished into the crowd, he stared at the line threading all the way outside. A puff of air escaped his lips. The day stretched endless. A cool draft of air wafted in from the open door. The constant arrival of people let in the chilly air, which kept the office cold. Tio didn't mind. The fact that the coolness had the waiting foresters wrapping their jackets closer around themselves didn't bother him. He turned his attention back to the line, one side of his lip curling up. Let them freeze. Private joke, Prince? His co-worker's bright yellow eyes locked on his as she swiveled in her chair. His curved lips straightened into a thin line, and he growled, "Shut up, Maya." His ice blue eyes narrowed. "I'm undercover, spying on the common people of the forest, and maybe you too. Better be careful." The lie spun out of his mouth. He was incognito, that much was true. Even his father understood what would happen if people recognized the crown prince working in a grunt job. Utter chaos. Girls falling all over themselves to get a glimpse of the very gorgeous, very single prince, hoping he'd notice them. People slipping messages for the king into Tio's hands and pockets. His presence would have turned the FBC into a circus, which wasn't the point of Tio working today. To avoid said circus, as well as make a point to his son, his father had instructed his press secretary to disguise Tio. Eyeglasses and a red wig that covered Tio's very short military-style cut changed his appearance drastically. Even Tio hardly recognized himself. Discovery wasn't a worry, as long as Maya or one of the other soldiers he worked with didn't let it slip. "Yeah, right, that's really why you're doing menial work here at the center." She pressed her own approved stamp into the ink pad. "It has nothing to do with you getting kicked out of school for brawling." And there it was. The reason Tio was working here today. His father's version of punishment for unprincely behavior. It may have been unprincely to punch the moron's lights out, but the dude deserved it. The image of the guy getting handsy with a girl who obviously wasn't his girlfriend, and he was clearly uncomfortable with the advances, made Tio's blood boil. He shook his head. His father hadn't bothered to ask questions when security summoned him to the school. He never did, always assuming Tio was to blame. Most times Tio was guilty, but occasionally it was the other guy's fault. Right, like good old dad cares about the details. Or me. Tio closed his eyes. When he opened them, Maya was still gazing at him. She blinked. Maybe you should just accept it and start acting like the prince you are. Like I said, Maya, shut it. He turned to the next person in line, waving them forward. The day was as endless as the line, all due to his father, conveniently declaring all forest papers expired and doubling the work of the FBC on the day his errant son was working out his punishment. Tio ran his tongue along his incisor, his eyes focused on the people in front of him. He straightened, eyes alert. Who's this? Instead of yet another elderly person standing in front of him, a girl around his age, curly black locks nearly covered in a red hood, filled the space. She studied him with eyes so green they made his mother's emeralds seem dull. Tio's dry mouth forgot how to work. Stop staring. He picked up his stamp. Papers, he barked, holding out his hand. The girl pushed them across the counter with a little more force than necessary, her fingers whiter than the papers they clutched. Did she just give me attitude? Tio narrowed his eyes and found his words. Name and occupation. Jenna Rydell Hood, courier for Hood Medicine. Place of residence. Her gaze slowly flicked to the sign above them that stated this was the Forest Business Center. Then her eyes locked on his. The Forest? Was that sarcasm? She better show me respect. His nostrils flared as blood pounded through his veins. How dare a forester talk to him or any wolf like that? Want to repeat that in a different tone? He snarled. Her eyes widened slightly. He sniffed. Fear. Good. The forest. She tugged at the string of her hoodie as she lowered her gaze to the stamp in his hand. Better. Tio slowly perused the half of her he could see above the counter. She shifted her weight under his stare. She was taller than average with a slim build. Remove the hood. The girl shoved it down off her curls, freeing them from their confines. They bounced to life. Her hand shook slightly and she stuffed it in her pocket as though afraid he'd notice. He did. The inky curls framed her porcelain face while the blood-red hood accentuated the contrast. And those eyes. When he reached them, she was staring into his once more, even though she risked getting reprimanded for being disrespectful. Again. Feisty. It should annoy him. Instead, he was drawn to her, intrigued. Would she back down? Her eyes never left his as he straightened to his full height of 6 feet 3 inches. He spread his fingers on the counter, resting his weight on them as he invaded her space. Wolves are due respect. I could make your life difficult for that little show of insolence. His lip curled up at the corner. However, I'm feeling generous, so I'll let it go this time. I won't the next. He stamped her papers with a loud thump and nudged them in her direction with one finger. Jenna Rydell Hood. He enunciated each word. I've got your number, sweetheart. The girl picked up the documents and turned away from the counter. She glanced back once before vanishing into the packed room. Now that was interesting. His lips quirked up. The day had been somewhat redeemed, at least for the 5 minutes he'd spent with her. Even if she was Forrest, his father would have a fit if he ever found out how Tio had put up with that kind of disrespect from one of her kind. Next, as an elderly gentleman filled the space vacated by the young girl, Tio closed his eyes so he wouldn't roll them. His small moment of victory vanished like the girl. I hate my father. Papers. He opened his eyes, held out his hand, and sighed.
Yay! Well done, wow, you write some really amazing stories, you guys. I'm so glad everybody's here. Thank you, Jennifer. Can you hold up your book one more time so that everybody can see it? This is Into the Forest. That's a really super cool cover. For those of you who don't know, this is an international book festival. Jennifer is coming all the way from Canada. We're so excited to have you here. What part of Canada are you from, Jennifer?
I'm in Ontario, about an hour south of Toronto.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm glad that you came back to join us again for this festival. We're really, really pleased to have you back.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Next, Mark Love is going to be reading from his book, Devious. Mark, do you have a copy of it so you can hold it up for us? There it is, Devious. And this is in the Amy Richmond series, right?
That's right.
See, I'm starting to learn.
You are. And I want to file a protest because you make me go after Jennifer just read that. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
It's a tough act to follow. Well done,
Indeed.
Jennifer.
Indeed. Well done.
Well done.
All right, Mark, when you are ready, sir, take the microphone and read aloud, please.
All right, I will. Thank you, Diana. Just a little setup on this, the Jamie Richmond series. This is part mystery, part romance. I was threatened by a friend when she realized that I wasn't including any romance in my stories and said, with the last name of Love, you got to.
Yeah, it's kind of a rule.
It's a rule. And I said, but I'm a guy, I know nothing about romance. She said, that's the beauty of fiction. You can make it up.
Well,
So,
and I got a vote of confidence, dear. You do a great job.
well, thank you. So
when you're ready.
Here we go. This is the scene from Devious. As I said, this is part mystery, part romance. The story is told from Jamie's perspective. He recently started a romantic relationship with Malone, who is a Michigan State Police sergeant that she met while doing research for one of her upcoming books. The scene takes place in November. Thursday evening, I returned to an unexpected heat wave. My apartment was stuffy and quiet. I was reminded of a spinster aunt who spent her life cooped inside her little flat, afraid to venture out into the world. I threw open the windows and switched off the furnace. I'd taken nothing but business suits with me, was dying to get comfortable in a pair of jeans. Dumped the contents of my suitcase on the floor of the closet and was shucking my heavy wool outfit when the phone rang. Hey, Jamie, how was the trip? Malone's deep voice cooed in my ear. It was good. How about dinner? I thought you were working. I am. Cops have a right to eat too, you know. I was standing in front of the mirror, wearing nothing but stockings and high heels. I wondered if Malone would like the outfit. Maybe I should ask him. So do you want to meet me or not? Yes, Malone. Where? O'Leary's in 10 minutes. I'm naked. Give me 20, I said. If I told him what I was really wearing, he might break out laughing or faint dead away. Forget O'Leary's. I'll be right there, he teased. 20 minutes. I kicked off the heels and squirmed out of the stockings. I opted for a pair of very lacy panties with a matching black bra and rummaged in the closet for a corduroy skirt and a cotton blouse. I called this my flirt skirt. It was knee length, but had functional snaps that ran down the front of it. Depending on how flirtatious I was feeling, determined how many snaps were left undone. I grabbed my bag and hurried off to meet him. O'Leary's wasn't crowded when I arrived. Malone was in uniform, sitting at a booth near the back of the restaurant. He greeted me with a tender hug and a chaste kiss on the lips, then pulled me in beside him on the bench. Saving it up for later, I asked. Bank on it. How was the trip? Okay. Shannon wants me to do 100 pages of rewrites for the book, and my publisher wants a synopsis for a series of mysteries we've been kicking around. If I can sell them on the series, I'll get an advance. We also talked about a promotional tour for next spring. Is that a big deal? Malone asked. It could be, depending on the reviews. There may be 20 cities in the Midwest with talk shows and autograph sessions. If they are footing the bill, it can help increase sales. I'll know more after the first of the year. Malone opened his menu and scanned the page quickly. A waitress approached, wearing a green leotard and skirt with a black apron. He glanced at me and raised his eyebrows. Want me to order for you? Sure, I'm starving. Malone turned to the girl. We'll have the roast lamb stew, tossed salads with raspberry vinaigrette, and coffee. You eat here often? I asked as she wiggled away. I'd swear she put a little extra swing in her hips for Malone's benefit. I didn't know whether to be angry or jealous. Idly, I undid a couple more snaps on the skirt. It fell open to mid-thigh. A couple times a week. John's a decent guy. The food's good and the prices are reasonable. A lot of the guys stop in. The service is pretty good too. He winked at me. It was obvious he'd noticed that extra wiggle. You're a good guy, Malone. He leaned over to kiss me. Left hand landed softly on my knee. I watched the expression hit his eyes as he realized this was a smooth, bare leg he was feeling. Malone slid his hand a little higher. A shiver of excitement ran through me. It took several moments for me to withdraw from that kiss. Dinner? I was glad this part of the restaurant was dark since I was blushing beet red. I think we're going to need that nourishment for later, Malone reluctantly removed his hand from my leg. After dinner, he walked me out to the parking lot. He stopped beside my car and leaned against the door. Did I tell you how much I missed you, Malone? I put my arms around his neck. His hands went to my waist. Nope. Would it be improper for a girl to kiss a cop while he's on duty? Malone's eyes went to his left wrist. I've got 2 minutes before I check in. He tipped his head down to meet my lips and kissed me warmly. If anyone was watching, I didn't see them. I didn't care. His left hand remained on my hip. The right had somehow drifted between my legs and undid 2 more snaps. The skirt was only fastened to the top of my hips now. A shudder ran through my whole body as his fingertips stroked my bare leg. Come home, Jamie. Gently, he pulled away and straightened up. Thanks for the flowers. My pleasure. Glad to have you back. How glad are you, Malone? See you later? Oh, yeah. It may take me a while to be able to drive. And I seem to be having this problem with my door. Just won't stay locked at night. I pushed his hands away and stepped back before I attacked him in the parking lot. I'll have to see what I can do to remedy that. And Jamie, don't change her.
Well done. Yay! I love the Jamie Richmond novels. They're so much fun. You do a really great job with them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
One more time, if you can show us the cover of Devious, please, so everyone is reminded what it looks like. There it is, Devious by Mark Love. Yay! Well done. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Are you ready? I don't know if I am. Officer Gare is not in the room tonight, so Amy has promised she's going to help me keep the peace in the case of the assassinated author. Andrew Allen Smith was revealed as the thief of the sardonic manuscript, and then he was assassinated, poisoned right there in the library vestibule. Oh my gosh. Who is the culprit and why did they do the deed? It's time to once again open up our see, it's been a long month. Interrogation session. Thank you, everyone, for putting up with my tongue. Okay, so who would like to sling the first question this evening? Mark, your hand went up really fast.
Yesterday,
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. So yesterday, somebody had mentioned that many people in the suspects were actually angry at Andrew. But there's 2 people that I have a question for, Chloe and Ruby, who my question is, were you actually angry at Andrew? Because sometimes it's the ones that are not angry who get left out and don't know. So it's possible they could have been involved in it.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I have to say that I wasn't angry at him. As another author, I kind of understand the inappropriate desperation to buy my book, please, buy my book.
Mhm.
But I wasn't angry at him.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Chloe? I mean, Ruby, I'm sorry.
I really didn't have any reason to be angry at Andrew. He was there, but I was mostly focused on researching. So
Okay, thank you.
Gary, go ahead.
I have a question. I have a question for Mary Ann. Who were the closest people to Andrew that day before he was poisoned?
The people standing the closest to him, you
Yes,
mean?
yes.
Yeah, I'm going to step in, Marianne, because this question was asked and answered a couple of days ago, and the answer is we were all standing in a circle in the lobby of the library, at equal distance to each other. So no one person was closer to Andrew than another. Emma Palova, go ahead.
I have a question for Mary Ann. The design on the cups, how could you distinguish between the different cups and the different drinks? Who was given what, at what time? And how did you keep your baristas accountable?
I wasn't involved in actually making the drinks. My two baristas were the ones that took those orders and made them. Everything is labeled in the cafe very well.
And
everyone,
if you notice watching the replay, everyone was given a different mug of a different design.
Yes.
So it would have been very easy to tell which drink was which, because they were
Yes.
all, everyone did get a completely different
Okay.
mug.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else? Deborah, go ahead.
Actually, Mackenzie had a question in the chat. Could Mr. Smith have been poisoned before the night of February 13th? There are slow acting poisons. She is quite observant.
That is an interesting idea. Does anybody have an answer for that? I don't know anything
Because
about
I didn't
it. Does
poison
anybody else
him,
know?
so
We don't know how he was poisoned at this point. So how would we know? Depends on what the poison was. So maybe.
Oh, Mark has the answer because, he's researched poisons and,
Yeah.
Okay, so Mark, go ahead. What's your answer? Poison guy?
I would say he couldn't have been poisoned beforehand because of the fast action that it had. He took one sip from his drink that night and went down. If it had been something that was delayed, he would have been even, how can I put this delicately, of the dead, he would have been even goofier than he normally was. So.
Is it possible? I mean, love the man, but I don't know if that's possible to be more goofy. Go
I did
ahead,
have
Mark.
a question for Ruby.
Oh my gosh.
yes.
I defer to the other Mark. So
Well, maybe he can.
So those of you, watch out. Andrew's ghost appears in the strangest of forms. So be careful, everyone. Watch where
you never
you're
look better.
To make me have nightmares.
Oh, and Amy, can you respond out loud to that, please?
Yeah, someone was asking if it was arsenic, and yesterday we were talking about that. Mark had asked our detective, and he had pointed out that he did not smell almond, which apparently is a telltale sign of arsenic. As I just found out last night. Cyanide. Oh,
Yeah.
Cyanide.
okay.
Totally
I
different
do
from
not
arsenic.
trust that detective.
Andrew's ghost is positing that maybe he was poisoned with iocane powder.
Which would be possible because it's untraceable, unsmellable, untasteable. So we don't know.
It's inconceivable.
It is.
But you would think someone of Andrew's acumen in worldly things would know enough to build up a resistance to iocane powder.
True. Good point. Yes.
So to be clear, nobody knows what he was poisoned with yet.
No.
That is clear. That is one of the few things we're clear on right now.
We know that we don't know.
Yes,
all right,
we
so
know
the
that
detective hasn't found out yet from a medical coroner or one of those
Yeah,
things.
we haven't. The detective has not received the coroner's report yet. Mark
Okay.
Love.
All right, a question for Ruby. I know you were having psychic images before about the number, what was it, 248 or 246?
246.
246. make me think of a cheerleader, but I think that's beside the point. Have you had, since the murder, have you had any other psychic visions that may be helpful?
Well, not about Andrew, unfortunately. We are mostly focused on the visions from page 246, which we believed was some kind of map. So we were looking into that and researching that, and then the manuscript was stolen. And then we found out Andrew stole it, and we've been investigating his murder since that point.
That's an interesting point. Melinda, can you tell us anything more about the map Ruby spoke of?
It is actually part of a crest, a family crest, maybe my family. I was so excited. But here's the thing, and I kept trying to tell everyone about this. There were rubies and jewels and a treasure chest incorporated into the symbology of the crest. But I have no idea what that means.
Wow.
Sounds like you have motive to try to get the book. So if you suspected that Andrew had it, I'm just going to leave that.
Curiouser and curiouser. Mackenzie wants to know, Miss Wheeland, you previously mentioned your baristas came from other countries. Do you recall which countries they came from?
Yes. Lumbo, the main barista, he comes from the Maldives Islands, the Maldives. And Boomquisha, she comes from Colombia in South America.
Interesting. It's nice that you're allowing immigrants to come into your barista and into your cafe, and you're giving them jobs. I think that's very admirable of you.
Well, yes, I think that it is too.
All right. I have something that Detective Gare left as a question he wanted me to ask. He says that in their investigation, they ran across something very interesting. As it turns out, Chloe came upon the patron list of the auction, which held the names of Deborah Reed and Andrew Smith as people who were involved in that auction, either in the room or on the phone. So Detective Gare wants to know, Chloe, who did you pay and how did you get that top secret list from the auctioneer?
Well, I have a lot of connections everywhere, and actually I didn't pay. I go out for coffee with people, and sometimes, there's benefits to kind of sitting back and listening. People will talk about all kinds of things, and if you're nice to folks, people sometimes will spill more than they should.
So could this have been a measure of quid pro quo? Could you have been receiving this top secret auctioneer list as a favor that you did for somebody else, in return for a favor that you did for somebody else?
I have nothing to say about that.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I want to ask a follow-up on that. Why did you get this list? Why were you interested in this list at all?
Well,
why were you being nosy about this, huh?
Well, I am always keeping my eyes out for things that I can write about. Most of my stories are come to some degree from things I run across in real life. So certainly that's part of it. And as someone who's retired, it's important to keep one's ear open for opportunities of all sorts.
Hi, awesome. So my question now is to Marianne. You seem to spend a lot of time in the library. I mean, you're slinging coffee and croissants all day long. I understand that it gets loud in the cafe, but after all, it is your business. So why have you been spending so much time organizing, reading and signing events and other antique shows and things at the library? What's that all about?
It's because I
Well-
do such a good job with the library, obviously. Sorry,
Well,
go ahead.
this is true. Jules and Amy do an excellent job, but my family has had a love of libraries ever since I can remember. And so I spend most of my time doing researching, not research so much, but doing events and event planning solely to sustain the library. Everything that we do is for the library because of my love and my family's love. As a matter of fact, my grandmother used to hold the same position that Amy holds. And so this is very important to me and my family, that I do everything I can for the library.
That's interesting. Amy, did you know that Marianne Whelan's grandmother once had your position at the library?
I did not know that. I just wonder if she did as good a job as I obviously can do. So
Well, it looks like now you need to do some genealogy research, maybe.
Maybe.
Yes, everyone loved my grandmother. She was the best.
And
Deborah
to read,
Reed,
of course.
Deborah Reed, go ahead.
I was wondering if Ruby has had any more visions about
Anything.
murder, just like, the dead body that just showed up out of nowhere, anything like that?
Unfortunately, no. We were all in the same room, which means it got very clouded, and unfortunately there's no significance about who did this. We're just gonna have to figure this out ourselves, guys.
I am seriously doubting like your
psychic ability
as psychic, because everything is so cloudy. Just saying.
Just saying. So Mark McCraw, you had a question that you put in the chat. Can you go ahead and ask that question?
Oh, okay. The question I have is it possible that somebody put poison on the book because he did touch the book?
Is that a possibility?
Well, but I touched the book as well because I took pictures of it. So I had to pull it out of the shelf. And, obviously I'm still alive and sassy. So just
and
at least sassy.
Well,
and
yeah.
I do have to remind everyone in the room that the sardonic manuscript fell out from behind the dust jacket of Andrew's Way of Antiquities. So it's clear that he had had the book in his possession for at least a little while before he died. And I think if the poison had been on the book, he would have died sooner. Just saying.
Well, unless it was slow acting, like somebody had mentioned earlier.
Anybody know of a topical poison that would work that way?
Tetrodotoxin.
There are some, I believe Gary died of putting some kind of an ointment on him. There are topicals, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there are.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions?
Kenzie has one in the chat.
Okay, can you read it for me?
Yeah, if it stops moving. Everybody keeps typing and it's just disappeared.
Andrew's ghost keeps he keeps reciting song lyrics. So there you go. The
It
last
says
one
Miss-
is Riders in the Storm. So there you go. Okay, go ahead.
It says, Miss Whelan, does either of your baristas have puffer fish anywhere near the cafe or at their homes, if you know?
Well,
I thought I
don't know.
saw an aquarium in the cafe. Is that a saltwater or a freshwater aquarium?
Yes, it's a saltwater aquarium, and Lumbo's family does deal in tropical fish. That's their business down in the Maldives. I don't know specifically what fish are in the aquarium he has in his home, but his brother Mumbo is the one that takes care of the aquarium in the cafe as well as other tropical aquariums in the area.
Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer Rains.
Turn your mic on, Jennifer.
Sorry, we have had this conversation before where the two baristas are innocent. They're not actually suspects. So if you followed that theory through, it would mean that someone else perhaps stole a pufferfish as well. And we do have lots of evidence of theft.
We do, indeed.
To use as a murder weapon.
Absolutely.
If it's discovered that that's the case. Because is that right, that the baristas are completely innocent? They are not suspects in this crime?
No, Detective Gare has not named them as suspects. They are persons of interest, but they are not suspects in this crime. I don't know if you guys are watching the chat, but Andrew's ghost keeps interjecting things. So if you get an opportunity to read the chat, you should probably do that. Killer rabbits from Monty Python, and oh my gosh, it's hard to carry on a conversation when wow. Okay, I'm just
with Andrew
let you
around.
guys-
Yeah, it's just hard.
with Andrew. Yes, absolutely. All right, we have time for one more question before we end our interrogation session for tonight. Who, Ruby, go ahead.
Yes, maybe we covered this, I'm not sure. Was the sardonic manuscript acquired during the present time or during Marianne grandmother's time? I'm curious.
Jules, can you answer that? I believe it was initially found on your desk, correct?
Yes, so it was on my desk here. It was shipped to me 2 years ago. So it would be during our time, basically. So current time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And in the chat, Mark McCraw asked, Marianne, were you supervising the making of the coffee orders? And I just want to clarify, we were all, including Marianne, in the library. We called in the orders. They brought them over to us. So
cool.
Andrew suggests that maybe we should get Ruby to channel the spirit of Marianne's grandmother, and maybe she's here with us, and maybe she knows something we don't. I think that's a conversation for tomorrow. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful questions and your intriguing minds. I'm tremendously grateful. Again, this is the case of the assassinated author. This is getting so much fun, you guys. I'm oh my gosh. Okay, who did it? I highly recommend that if you would like to solve this murder, you watch the replays on our Facebook channel, YouTube channel. They're posted on our website. Go back and watch the replays. We're getting so close to the end of our time in this interrogation that when I start to hear rehashes of questions already asked and answered, I'm gonna have to deflect them so that new questions can be asked. So if you're really super interested, go back and watch the replays, read the transcripts, all that stuff. The case book is out there. It is public knowledge for everyone. Scavenger hunt. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but every morning a new door opens on our scavenger hunt page on the website. There are riddles that we're posting every day that in some way are connected to the books that are read every day. So if you don't go and get the riddles in the morning, make sure you visit after you watch the replays or after our interrogation session so that everything is fresh in your mind and you can get the answers to those riddles. Fingerprints. Deborah Reed has collected 134 fingerprints. Amy Kelso, 127. Andrew Allen Smith, even though he's dead, has collected 122, which I think is an astounding amount of fingerprints for a ghost to discover. I'm just saying. I just think it's odd. Okay, fingerprints. Chloe is on the board with 90, Jen Rinaldi with 86, Emma at 81, Christopher Garrett 76, and Jules at 69. So far, we have had 422 pairs of eyes on this wacky investigation. There's the witness ledger. You can see how many people come into the room each night. Let's see if we can get those numbers back up again. Remember, the more people you invite, the more people get eyes on book covers and discover your amazing stories. That is, after all, the whole point of this entire month, is to get more exposure and to share that exposure with all of the authors in the room. Sure, the game we're playing is super tons of fun, but the game here is books, really. Okay, next, we're going to spin the spinning wheel of happiness in just a moment. If your name comes up on the spinning wheel, please send me an email to diana@pagespromotions.com with your mailing address, and I will get those addresses to the authors so they can ship you books. I apologize, authors. I am a couple of days behind in forwarding those addresses to you. Oddly enough, I do have a day job. So, so just give me a couple of days to kind of catch up, but those addresses will be forthcoming. And now, everybody turn on your microphones. It's time to play the lightning round.
Mackenzie's got a real good comment before you get started with that. She thinks Mackenzie says she thinks Mr. Smith's fingerprint should be donated to the murderer.
Oh, there's an interesting concept.
She's already cutting my fingers off.
Unless I'm the murderer. No, I mean, I'm not.
Already cut your fingers off, Andrew? Is that what you said?
Yep. I mean, she just wants to cut I think it's so she can open up my phone and look at all the crazy stuff on there.
And yes, Mandy Joe, as we talked about the other day, your post office will take the books on an amazing adventure before they get to their destination. It's amazing. Just for fun, guys, once in a while, watch the tracking information for packages that you send. It's really like a scavenger hunt of its very own. Okay, tonight's lightning round question. We have a majority of authors in the room tonight, so the majority of authors are going to answer this question for me. Name a title that you wrote that you were absolutely felt like you were forced to write. Like, it wouldn't stay quiet. It wouldn't wait for you to finish this other project you were working on. What was the name of the book in your catalog that really pushed itself to the front and forced you to write it? Marianne Wieland.
The very first one, My Heart for Jill, in the Mountain Mama series. It was my do-over book. I felt like I really had to do that. If I could do my life over, that would be it. Jill's life.
Awesome. Mark Love, what about you?
This one, Your Turn to Die. I had the title within about a week of when I started writing the book, which is very unusual for me, but it was like getting hit in the head with a hammer, which I'm sure Andrew can understand.
Hitting the head with a hammer, Andrew? Okay. Mandy Joe, what about you?
I would say Amaranth. It took me 2 months to write it, and it was one of those that once you started it, I just wouldn't
stay
go on
quiet.
to something else before finishing.
Okay. Deborah Reed, I'm really intrigued about this answer for you because you have a lot of really astounding titles.
Honestly, Daisies in the Rain. It was, the main character is based off a young lady who I know, and she had a lot of self-doubt at the time, and I had intended it to be a short story to help encourage her. I wrote the first 5 pages, never having written any type of young adult before, only having written thrillers. And my husband read those 5 pages and said, "You can't limit this. You need to let it be what it's going to be." And it turned into a full-fledged novel, and hopefully, I believe, touched her, but also I've been told other people as well. So
absolutely, it has. Absolutely. Jules Nelson, what about you?
It'd probably be Shadows. I had meant to write what the book I'm writing right now. It's called Ashes, which is the story of the Civil War from women's perspective. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, everybody needs to know who the main character is before. And then it literally just exploded. And it took me only 4 months to write that book from start to finish editing. So
That's
that was
amazing. That's a book
fast.
that won't stay quiet. Yeah.
Mhm.
Chloe Holiday.
It was the one that it was my first novel ever. And it was just so intoxicating because it was fun. And I was God in that world. And it was fantastic. Unfortunately, it's not published because as my first novel, it wasn't really one, it was two shoved together, and it's in the verge of becoming a trilogy, actually. And it should be fun, but that was the one. That was my first taste of being an author.
That's pretty cool. Jennifer Willcock.
Probably my first novel, Exit Stage Right, because it was, I had written nonfiction before that, and so it was just trying to get a story out on a page, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. Mark McCraw.
Probably would be a book that I wrote called Living on a Military Base. At first, not knowing what kind of stories I was going to put in there, and it was challenging. Other than identifying places on the base that kids go to, it was basically telling other people about what it's like to live on a military base, telling other kids what it's like. So it was challenging.
Okay. Awesome. Emma Palova, is there a title that really forced itself upon you?
Yeah, it definitely was my memoir, Greenwich Meridian memoir, about our family immigration saga from former Czechoslovakia.
Okay, cool. Jennifer Rains.
Possibly Planting Hope, which isn't published yet, but will be published in July. A friend who was dying, but who got enormous solace from gardens, the healing power of gardens.
Okay.
So that one probably. It's a romance, but it's it's in a garden.
Excellent. Preeti, what about you? Is there a book that really pearls in my mind? First nonfiction book. Never thought you would write a nonfiction. Excellent. Gary Floyd.
I would say I'm going to go with the subtitle to the book that I have out now, which is Barbarians of the Halls of Power is the title, but the subtitle is How I Stopped Worrying About the Civil War and Embraced the Permanent War State. It is actually a homage to Dr. Strangelove.
Okay, cool. Cool. Jen Rinaldi.
Well, this is my first book, and it came in a dream, and it came out in less than a month. It's taken me 2 years, and I have 4 written already. So
that's fantastic.
This is my fire.
That's awesome. Amy Kelso, what about you?
Actually, the one that forced itself on me is the most recent one that I've written that I haven't published yet. Going to be called Sins of the Daughters, and I actually fought against writing this book and ended up having writer's block for over a year. I couldn't write anything because it wanted to come out and wouldn't let me anything else out. So finally I gave in, and it just flew out. So
okay. All right, Melinda Falgo, what about you?
That would have to be Gubbins Club, The Legend of Charlie's Gold. Pirates, puzzles, mysteries, treasures. I mean, what's not to love?
Exactly. It's a fun place for your imagination to go. Ruby Fink.
Probably Frogville, though technically that was a ghostwriting project I did, and the author's name is Charlotte Frost. So don't tell her I told you that, but that book I finished within a month.
Anybody who watches this now knows.
Oh, she can. It's on some of the covers. It says Charlotte Frost, and then underneath with Ruby Fink in very tiny letters. So I got a little bit of credit for the work I did.
You'll be James Patterson before you know it.
I'd love that.
Okay.
It's like those James Patterson books.
Yeah. Andrew, you go ahead. What about you?
You know, every one of them I got passionate about and continue to get passionate about, but this one was a work that had to be done. You know, what not to say to people who are grieving, or what to say to people who are grieving, and soon to be a follow-up dealing with grief. I mean, it's a we all have to face it, and everybody faces it different ways. But, you know, we've got to be more accepting that the way that you see the world may not be the way that anybody else sees the world. And
Absolutely.
be nice along the way and help people deal instead of trying to fix it, because you can't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the answer to that question is this book. Can you see it? There you go. This is A Duck Echoes, which is the second collection of Drake's short stories. Andrew's got it. There you go. Thank you, Andrew. Drake forced me to write that book in about 6 weeks. 15 short stories that tumbled from duck to my fingers very, very quickly, and I could not stop writing it. It was very, very strange, because for me, it takes me forever. So I am extremely concerned for my writer's soul, because Drake may be pushing me into becoming a pantser.
I was gonna ask, did you pants it or plant it?
No, I absolutely pantsed it. And in fact, one day he quacked 3 short stories in my ear in a span of about 2.5 hours. So I don't know what's going on, you guys, but I think you might be rubbing off on Drake a little bit, and it's got me concerned.
Next time somebody's quacking in your ear, duck.
Did not see that coming. Okay. All right. We are going to spin the wheel of happiness. Let me share my screen. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your writing journeys with us. I love learning more about you, especially you authors that I don't know very well. So it's very, very fun for me to get to know you a little bit better. And I hope you're having fun learning a little bit about each other. So tonight, the first spin of the Magic Spinny Wheel of Happiness is for Mark Love's book, Devious. And then the second spin will be for Jennifer Willcock's book, Into the Forest. So just because Andrew's looking at me with intent eyes, I'm going to make sure the sound is working. Okay.
Check your button.
The button is pressed. Okay, here we go. First one for Mark's book. Congratulations, Jules. Okay, next is for Jennifer's book. Here we go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love giving away stuff. Okay, so want to share this other thing with you one more time, just in case you guys missed it. Here is the email address, Diana@pagespromotions.com. Send me an email with your mailing address, even if you think I already have it. Please, pretty please, send me the email so that I can keep my to-do list under control. Before we go, Andrew, I know you've been dead and relatively quiet these last few days, which I know is challenging. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with us before we leave, sir?
Well, 2 things. I mean, first of all, it strikes me that you should say something like a writer writes, because you were sounding like Danny DeVito. I love giving away stuff, but you actually love giving away other people's stuff. So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Okay,
but
technically you're giving away your stuff. I'm just the conduit of delivery.
I know. You're just a messenger. No, I think that everything is fantastic. You guys are all so well engaged. We just need about 100 more people in here to make it far more psychotic.
Yeah.
And give me much more pun fodder. I love pun fodder.
That would be super fun. Amy, any last words?
Nope.
Okay, Deborah, any last words?
I'm just having a ball, and I hope you all know that when I'm in character, that is not actually me.
Maybe a little bit.
Okay, maybe a little bit, but I honestly would never be that mean to anyone, ever. I love you all.
It's true. It's true. If you met Deborah in person, she's a very nice human being.
Now me, I'm myself in character. No, just kidding.
Amy's another story
Deborah
altogether.
beats me.
Go Pulitzer.
Chloe, do you have anything that you'd like to impart before we leave? Oh, you got to turn your mic on. No? Yes. No?
Duh. No, thank you.
Okay. Jules, what about you?
I just wanted to mention that me and Amy got all the chai off the carpet today, so it's all cleaned up. So.
That's spectacular.
We
Took
expect
a
your
while,
best,
but we made it good.
Since it's a contact poison. Okay. You'll be joining me in the great beyond.
We did use gloves and proper procedures, you know, based on the manual. Yeah, we're good.
Proper
But
carpet
Bob
clean.
misses you.
Clean,
likes
clean, clean carpets carefully. Melinda Fauger, what about you? Any last parting words?
I'm just wondering if Miss Kelso is going to let me use the sardonic manuscript again now that it's been found.
Well, we shall see if I think you deserve it. It really depends, perhaps, on if we find out what you did to Andrew or not. We'll find out. We'll see.
Oh, you're gonna hang that one over her head. That's good. I like it. I like it. And last but not least, Ruby Fink. Any parting words before we go? Do you have any last visions to share?
Well, you all seem to think I'm pretty incompetent there, so no, I am very good. Thank you.
So you're just gonna stick with your story of incompetence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Marianne, any last words?
Actually, yes, I do not drink coffee, nor am I able to make coffee. I've never made a drinkable cup of coffee in my life. So
Maybe that's the
just
problem.
saying.
I haven't either. So my husband has banned me from the coffee maker. I'm not even allowed to push the button. So
Reminds me of my first job. I was working at a convenience store and they said, make the coffee. I had never made coffee in my life. I went over there. I put a filter in like I had seen them do. I put 9 scoops of coffee inside
That's
of it.
what I done. Yes.
And it stood up, walked out of the store and attacked people.
yeah, I mean, it takes 4 scoops of cocoa, right? So wouldn't it take? Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming back tonight. Thank you for playing our silly, ridiculous game. Please invite your friends and everyone you know to come in so that we can share our books with more of the humans on the planet. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Night.
Night all.